Coming up next on Arizona Horizons Journalists Roundtable, we'll discuss the contempt of court proceedings against Sheriff Joe Arpaio, and Governor Ducey signs a bill allowing same-sex couples to adopt. The Journalists Roundtable is next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Eight, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizons Journalists Roundtable. I'm Ted Simons. Joining us tonight, Mike Sunnix of the Phoenix Business Journal, Howard Fisher of Capital Media Services, and Ben Giles of the Arizona Capital Times. All eyes this week on the contempt of court hearing against Maricopa County Sheriff Joe Arpaio. All right, Mike, let's get the background, let's get the overview, and then start dive bombing.
Well,
here.
Huge fireworks this week, big national story on whether the sheriff and his top deputy and the sheriff's office were defying the federal court's order related to racial profiling of Hispanics, whether they were intentionally doing this, whether they were incompetent in doing this, and just lots of testimony. I think obviously the biggest story is the sheriff admitting that private investigators were investigating Judge Snow, the federal judge's wife, over this because of some comments that might have been made about their feelings about the sheriff. And this just fits back into all these abuse of power charges, past cases that the sheriff and his office have been involved with political enemies, media enemies, all these folks. But there's so many layers to this on how the office is managed, whether the sheriff is in charge at all, whether there's competence there, whether they were intentionally defying a federal court order, and then obviously these investigations by private investigators into a federal judge's spouse.
Well, and this goes, to the bigger word I think is paranoia. This sheriff, and he does talk about himself in the third person this way.
Yes, he does.
Says they're all out to get me. Obama is out to get me. The governor was out to get him. Everybody was out to get him. So this private investigator, based on something that somebody overheard at a restaurant, supposedly with the judge's wife, telling somebody at a restaurant, well, my husband's going to get him. They hire a private investigator, his lawyer hired a private investigator to go ahead and find out. And this came up almost accidentally because the judge himself decided to question Arpaio to say, let's talk about some of these investigations. Let's talk about some of the money. And little by little, and all of a sudden, it's, oh, and by the way, Judge, here's what I know about your wife. Oh my God.
Well, and not only that, but before they got there, if I remember correctly, they were talking about an investigation into the Justice Department because the Justice Department was looking into the sheriff's office, and there were rumors and thoughts and emails that perhaps correspondence phones of everyone involved were tapped or being monitored or something along these lines. Goodness gracious, everyone was being monitored.
It makes you wonder who else might be investigated by either a PI and exactly who is doing these investigations into the Department of Justice. Is it people within the sheriff's office? And I think it certainly does play up, as Howie mentioned, into this paranoia. But the other thing that we keep seeing in the courtroom this week is also a pass the buck attitude. Mm-hmm. As was mentioned, the council hired the PIs. I didn't hire the PIs. I just make suggestions to my deputies. I don't actually carry out this court order to stop racially profiling.
And who the hell then is running the department? He ran for office, wanted this elected job so that he could set policy. But then when it comes down to who said, go ahead and question people who you suspect are illegal immigrants. Who said, don't keep the tapes that the judge said that you're supposed to keep? Oh, that wasn't me. That was someone else.
Well, it's a question, is it plausible deniability? Do you protect the sheriff from charges and harm by having the staff do it? Is it leadership style? He's 82 years old. Is it his age? Is it a combination of it all? Is it paranoia? Is it Nixonian? I mean, if you look at some of the things they've done in the past, you can connect the dots. A lot of the opponents will connect the dots. Don Stapley, Sandra Dowling, folks they've investigated, the New Times publishers that they arrested, and you see parallels with how Andy Thomas felt towards the judges and the paranoia there. But then you also see this kind of hands-off. There's two sheriffs. There's this bravado one that's out to the media, the toughest lawman, the guy that's with Steven Seagal, and then when he shows up in court, he's much more docile. He's passing the buck. He's more of the suggester rather than the toughest guy in the state.
Well, and that hands-off suggestive attitude is maybe the best argument that he can make right now, because he's already admitted contempt of court. Now they're just trying to determine, was it willful or was it ignorant?
Well, and you mentioned protecting the sheriff. I mean, my goodness, we're having former deputies, we're having people from the department who are saying, I talked to him, he personally told me this, he advised me to do this. There was a deposition from an MCSO supervisor. Arpaio's response was, I don't give orders, I may give suggestions. I'm not in the military. Deputies made the decisions based on circumstances.
I
Welcome
don't
bus.
I would say, well, not only that, I don't seem to recall, and certainly newspapers are not a military structure, my editors did not give me suggestions on stories to write. I'm sorry. If you're a deputy, and this is a military hierarchy, sheriff says do something, you do it. None of the suggestion stuff. I don't think any of this is going to wash. I think that the judge is ultimately going to decide, look, it's not just that you can't remember, oh, I'm too old, but all the other testimony that you talk about to say, wait a second, these people here said you told them, you directed, and even if you didn't personally direct, ultimately the buck stops here.
But it's not an excuse on either way. There is incompetence over there. If you looked at the way they bungled the El Mirage sexual assault rape cases, and they just settled one with a young lady who was raped by her uncle, and she reported it, and they didn't do anything, and she was repeatedly raped by her uncle, and the county had to settle that for what, $3 million. They've had these other cases over the years where they haven't handled things very well. Not assigning nonviolent inmates with violent ones, the prostitution stings from several years ago that were all bungled. And so there is that history over there. It's kind of a combination of both. They willfully denying some things, but they are also incompetent sometimes.
And I love this. I'm waiting for the 2016 race, and Joe's already said he's running again. Hi, I'm Sheriff Joe. I'm just incompetent.
Yeah. Well, we're going to get to that in a second here. But then, before even the bombshell regarding the judge's wife being investigated, he apologized to the judge. After they were showing all sorts of video and we were hearing all the bravado and I'm not going to change anything, I'm not going to do this, he went ahead and apologized to the judge, saying he had a deep respect for courts and judges, didn't know all the facts of the court order, really hurts after 55 years to be in this position, want to apologize to the judge, I should have known more. The court order slipped through the cracks. A court order slipped through the cracks?
If you believe in the incompetence theory, then maybe it did.
But it was a court order related to how, racial profiling, how they treated an entire group of people, Hispanics. And so you think that would be a court order that would sweep through policy, through the jails, how they treated inmates, how they treated people they pulled over, how they interacted with different racial and ethnic groups. It wasn't like this one little memo an email that they happened to miss. It was a pretty sweeping court order in terms of its breadth.
And to say it slipped through the cracks right after the ACLU's attorneys just played video after video of Arpaio on the campaign trail bragging about how the judges can't tell me what to do, no one can tell me what to do, I'm going to enforce the law, or at least the law the way he sees it.
What slipped through the cracks? He put it in the shredder. Slipped through the cracks. Oh, come on. As you point out, this is a guy who insists he knew everything going on. He talked about how it didn't matter whether the federal government revoked his 287G status, which allowed him to essentially act, and his deputies to act as immigration officers. He said, I'm going to do what I damn well please. And that works for a while, and it's very good politically. It's like pink underwear and pink handcuffs. But in terms of a federal judge, does not wash.
As far as Arpaio's allies, his underlings, his subordinates, the ones he has left, I mean, how do they take all this, knowing that at the slightest hint of trouble, you've got the school bus tracks over your back?
Yeah, I mean, they've had a lot of turnover there since Hendershot left, and there are some loyalists over there. But I think if you talk to rank and file folks, he's more of a figurehead now. He's the guy that's on TV with the bravado, but I don't think most of the rank and file think he's running the show over there. So he has kind of this two-track defense: is it's my underlings, I didn't do it.
But let me get deeper than that, which goes to your question. If I'm working for Sheriff Joe, and I know that if something goes wrong, he's going to throw me under the bus, or under the steamroller, I've got to wonder, should I be looking for other work? I don't want to be the one standing in front of a federal judge explaining that somehow it's my fault. At a certain point, yes, there are people who will fall on swords. There's a whole history of that, publicists and everything else. But there are a lot of deputies who are highly qualified people there. There are a lot of officers who are highly qualified people who are not going to sit still for this.
And I think that's why earlier in the week, I believe it was a sergeant was testifying that Joe got on the phone to tell him, hey, you need to detain these people who aren't suspected of anything, but you need to detain them because that's what we do. We detain people we suspect might be illegal immigrants.
And in that testimony, he said he argued with the sheriff, and he held his ground with the sheriff, and the sheriff wound up saying, all right, just go ahead and take some photographs. The sheriff actually backed down. When asked about this, the sheriff didn't recall the conversation.
Well, it's amazing how little he recalls anywhere. And that's the thing, if I'm a federal judge, look, juries do the same thing. You weigh the totality of the evidence. You judge the witness, you judge the credibility of each witness. And this is what Judge Snow is going to do. He's going to judge the credibility of all the people who stood there and say, we've already got admission of contempt. What is the appropriate penalty? And is it criminal? Is that the next step?
Yeah, that is the next step. What is the judge going to, what does a judge do when he sees this?
Well, I think obviously you could see some penalties against the sheriff personally, and try not to have it come from the county. That's been a big point of contention because you've had so many settlements because of the sheriff's office actions and problems that the counties have to settle things. So maybe have him pay it. Greater powers for a receiver type person that's in there and has some real power to monitor things. Getting to the criminal charges is a big jump there because you have to. There's a bigger burden of proof there.
Well, the problem with the oversight is there was actually a federal appellate court ruling
Yes.
this week dealing with the same case but a different angle. And the Ninth Circuit said, look, we'll accept certain things, but we're not quite ready to have a monitor in there in all the little details. That's overreach.
It's got to be constitutional issues that
Yes.
we're involved with. And yet, going past some of those, they got some 30 some odd internal investigations going. Who knows what's happening over there? I mean, would you be surprised to see criminal stuff coming out of this?
I would. I think at some point we won't know how those internal investigations are going, probably through the next election cycle. We won't know. We might not even know by the end of this contempt hearing whether or not there's going to be criminal charges or not, whether or not in the future there's going to be a criminal contempt hearing. I could see a giant fine, but I'm not so sure.
Well, we talked for years about abuse of power with Andy Thomas, obviously, and the sheriff and grand juries, and whether we'd have somebody step forward and do that. And we've never had that because we've had a Republican president in there and Republican U.S. attorneys. And since Obama has been there, the aggressiveness of going that personally straight at Arpaio in a fight like that, there's a case to be made. There's plenty of abuse of power.
How is it not obstruction and or intimidation when you have the judge in the case's family investigate it? Just for a casual conversation at a restaurant?
And that's really where I think it's going to be interesting. I think at the end of this, Judge Snow refers us to another judge on the criminal charge because he is in some ways a witness to this. And that's where I think the criminal charges are going to come up. And that's where I think that you could see Sheriff Joe wondering if he's going to be wearing pink underwear or whatever the federal equivalent is.
Reverse question here. How much of a case does Arpaio and his group have in that maybe the judge shouldn't have been overseeing this? Maybe the judge did have something. After all, he's out to get him to lose the election.
Well, the interesting thing is, since the judge didn't know, theoretically, I realize there were some New Times articles, but the judge didn't know until he questioned Arpaio that Joe was the one whose attorney ordered this. I didn't hear a motion to disqualify the judge or a mistrial or whatever the federal equivalent would be. So I don't know whether you can come in now and say, but this judge was biased against us at all the time. The moment that testimony came up, somebody should have made a motion to say, let's put a halt to this and send it up to another judge.
Well, I think you'll hear that from Arpaio and the conservative folks that support him. That the U.S. Justice Department doesn't like how he acts on immigration and law and order issues, and they're out to get him. The federal judiciary, you saw this with him and Andy Thomas's fight with judges here, are bent against him and bent against his agenda and who he is, and there's a vendetta against him. I think you'll definitely see that.
And it goes directly to the president. Remember, he sued the president over the expansion of the Dreamers program. So clearly, I want you to know that Barack is in Washington saying, get this guy.
Yeah. And also, it reminds me a little bit of the way the county operated in the past, in the recent past. you basically find every judge you can, start investigating them, because then when they come start investigating you or having some sort of a proceeding over you, you can say, conflict, you can't handle this.
It's a pretty backwards way to cover yourself, but and I think that just speaks to how many different hearings, how many contempt hearings is Joe going to have to go through? How many times how long is he going to be in court, and how is this going to impact, as Howie said, in 2016 when he's running for office?
Let's get to the next campaign, Howie. What happens here? Do the Republicans find someone? Do they gently tell him go away? What happens?
Well, I think one of the possibilities that this could end is there was sort of I want to call a plea agreement, but that Joe retires in exchange for not being prosecuted, perhaps. And so there will be no Sheriff Joe on the campaign trail in 2016. If he somehow is, and if this case is still continuing, daily headlines, I think the party quietly finds someone to say, look, Joe, you can't do this, and if you do, we're going to back someone else.
That someone better be a someone, because they're going to be going up against Joe Arpaio.
Yeah, the past history hasn't proven that. We haven't had the political leadership either from McCain or the congressional delegation or past governors or leadership or the business community to step forward and to find somebody. That we've never done that yet. Now things could change, but Joe still raises more money than everybody else in the state. He still gets a lot of checks from a lot of seniors and older folks throughout the country who support his, the law and order, anti-immigrant stances, and he still has a lot of political backing.
I'll give you a perfect example. It occurred today. We ran into the governor and said, first question, you sorry you endorsed Sheriff Joe? Well, this thing is still playing out, and I don't want to do anything. And then the follow-up question, are you sorry Sheriff Joe endorsed you? And he relied on that endorsement a lot to get himself elected. Well, Maricopa County is a lot safer because of Sheriff Joe. So even with all this stuff coming down, this afternoon, this governor was hesitant to put any distance between himself and the sheriff.
Any prominent Republicans coming out and saying this is not good, I don't like what I'm hearing, this is bad, boo?
Have you
Something
guys heard
along those
anything?
lines?
No, not a peep.
You'll hear, business folks and some of the more moderate Republicans quietly, obviously, talk about this. Arpaio comes up a lot. He's part of our state's image. If you check out the Washington Post or New York Times, there's stories about this. So he's part of the image of Arizona, and a lot of them don't like that. But there's a good chance that he could win re-election again. A Democrat's not going to win the sheriff's office. It's a law and order race. It's going to be very hard for a Democrat to win. So you have to find somebody in the primary to run against him. And frankly, there's not a lot of high-profile law and order people here. Police department chiefs, those types of things. There's not a lot of people to step forward.
Flash prediction, is Joe Arpaio the sheriff in 2 years from now?
2 years from now, no.
What do you think?
Yes.
Yeah, he'll be.
You think so?
Yeah, he'll stay.
All right, let's keep it moving here. You mentioned the governor. The governor surprised some folks, Ben, and this is a story that you broke here regarding same-sex couples and adopting kids. And everyone thought he was going to go one way, went the exact opposite.
Yeah, in February, Attorney General Mark Brnovich and his office advised the Department of Child Safety that, hey, the U.S. Supreme Court is going to hear some same-sex marriage cases. You've been issuing joint marriage or joint foster and adoption licenses to gay couples, to gay married couples. We think you should stop doing that. We want to wait and see what the U.S. Supreme Court does. From about November to February, they'd been issuing those joint licenses, same as they would to a husband and wife. They stopped doing that at the advice of the Attorney General. And when we called the governor's office on Wednesday, they said this is the first we've heard of it. And about 4 hours later, there was a statement from the governor instructing the department, there's 17,000 kids under your care. If there's a loving two-parent family home that wants to bring one of these kids in, we should let them do it.
And what's fascinating about the governor, A, finding out, and B, his current director, Greg McKay, not telling him, is 2-3 weeks earlier, the governor made some very vocal statements saying virtually the same thing. I don't care about the sexual preference of the parents. I want loving homes. Well, Greg McKay, who was appointed like 6 days after the advice that came down from the Attorney General, at some point it should have occurred to him, hey, maybe I ought to tell the governor what the heck I'm doing here. And when we asked the governor about it today, it was sort of well, I dealt with it as soon as I knew. Yeah, but why didn't you know? Does that suggest a communication problem with your hand-picked director?
And those are questions that no one is answering at this time. We asked the spokesman for the Department of Child Safety today, why didn't Greg McKay alert the governor to this? And they've said, oh, well, we've had it under review since February. We're not going to talk about the review because that information is protected by attorney-client privilege. We asked the governor the same thing. He won't talk about it. But you know who did mention he was trying to bring this up to the governor's staff in January when this was being cooked up, when this opinion was being discussed, and then in February it was former Director Charles Flanagan.
I was going to say, talk about the timing of this. Is there coincidence?
Well, no, I think Flanagan was on his way out anyway, but that's part of the chicken and egg effect of the thing. October, a federal judge says gays can marry. November, DCS amends its policy and says, you're married, you're married, you're married, despite what it says in the adoption laws about a man and a woman may jointly adopt. Goes on like that until February 4th, because I guess Flanagan had requested some legal advice. Then the department changes the policy. Flanagan is basically, was not talking to the governor at that point anymore. I mean, they were going to fire his douche, and everybody knew that, and so they weren't communicating. McKay comes in. He's got everything else to deal with. The new deputy director, we'll talk about her in a minute, new staff. I don't think it was high on his horizon. But again, at the point that the governor, he made front page headlines about adoption of gays, I don't know what the hell McKay was thinking.
And that's the other distinction too, is what was prompting this? Who was asking for this? Because Flanagan has said, I didn't ask Brnovich for this memo. It was being talked about, and it had been talked about since the October court ruling that said the gay marriage ban in Arizona is unconstitutional. And Flanagan and in consultation with former Attorney General Tom Horne said, we're going to issue these licenses. And why would it change?
Last point on this very quickly. Governor says we need more adoptions in Arizona, not less. All loving families should be allowed to adopt. Some people are surprised by that.
I think you see some people that are on the opposite side of the political spectrum from the governor, that expect him to act like a certain type of Republican, certain type of social conservative. He certainly has been sided with Kathy Herod on abortion and some issues like that, and he's very conservative. But he is not as dogmatic as maybe people think. And when the ruling came out, remember he was the last one to respond to that among the Republican candidates. I think that he 1062 is still in the mirror for a lot of folks in the state, and we don't want to come across as intolerant. Plus the polling, if you look at the polling, 56% of voters here are okay with same-sex marriage. It's even higher for adoptions and stuff. So the country's changing, and I think that's changing the Republican Party also.
And there are two other quick factors. Number one, the governor's wife is very active as a child advocate. And number two, he was adopted by a stepfather. So he's got some inkling.
Yes.
While it's not your typical out-of-home placement, he understands
Very
us.
true. Before we get out of here now, let's stay with DCS.
Yes.
What is going on over there?
Well, what's not going on over there? Well, one of the interesting things is they had brought in Vicky Mayo. And normally a director chooses his own deputy director. Well, it was the governor who chose Vicky Mayo, who had some business experience, had some expertise in child advocacy, and brought her in there. 2.5 months later, she's gone, got a job over at DES, and she's not talking. I mean, she's still working for the state. I can't help but believe that maybe after 2.5 months of working with Greg McKay, who sees things as a cop, because that's his background, maybe she decided this isn't where she wants to be.
We talked about this last year when they were creating this thing. Whether just moving into new offices and having private offices, a new letterhead and a new name is going to solve any of the problems. And I think we're seeing some of that here with the agency, obviously with the culture over there.
Well, is this damaging or is it creative upheaval?
That term.
Thank you.
It's finding the right place for the right people, but that's an interesting strategy. Why not find the right people for the place where you need them right now? Because DCS has been in turmoil for years. It needs good people. It needs a strong director. And Ducey has said McKay's my guy. But to bring someone in and then 2.5 months later say, oh, well, they're great. I just think they'll be better over here.
They'll be greater over here.
Yeah,
yes.
you really need people in DCS right now, because that's the agency that's in so much trouble.
So last point on this, we got program managers dismissed, we got dress codes being enforced, we got people coming in to save the day, only 2.5 months later they're going off to some completely different job. What about the children?
Well, on one hand, you could say that look, when I talked to Kate Brophy McGee, who was really the architect of a whole new agency, she said, look, I expected some program managers to be fired. I expected, we needed some shakeup in there because you just move folks over. As far as the rest of the stuff going on, I got to admit that when you're starting to worry about a dress code and what women's shoes look like, people are wondering, who's paying attention to the prime directive of the agency?
All right, we will continue to pay attention to this story. Great job, guys. Good to have you all here. Thank you so much. Monday on Arizona Horizon, Phoenix Mayor Greg Stanton joins us to discuss a variety of city issues, and we'll recognize Financial Literacy Month with some financial tips. That's Monday at 5:30 and 10 on the next Arizona Horizon. That is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great weekend.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of 8, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.